What's good, people? It's about that time to randomly relate, reverse rants, no hate. So I got something kind of interesting to talk about in this video, and it's not like it's something hard to really figure out, but because favoritism plays a big part, I'll explain it to y'all in a second. So if you guys don't know that the fight between Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz, well, Chavez was a part of the Spanish announced team, right? So Chavez is basically saying that he's not impressed with, you know, Andy Ruiz's performance, and he was saying that only because of the knockdowns is the reason that they gave him the fight. Now, let me just say, he scored the knockdowns, okay? Now, I said if those same punches that knocked him down wouldn't have knocked him down, like if he would have been able to take them, yeah, then he doesn't get those 3 points because pretty much that's what won the fight for him. And Chavez is right. But you have to count the knockdowns. You can't just say, a lot of people say things like that. It's like, a guy's winning a fight, then all of a sudden he catch a guy and it's like, damn, if he would have slipped that punch. Well, he didn't. Okay? Bottom line. There's no need to even say if he would have. My point in mentioning it, the knockdown situation was the fact that he was being outboxed by Luis Ortiz. Truthfully, I wasn't impressed by Andy Ruiz either. Okay, because when two guys have a fight that's competitive, people, oh, it was a good fight, but what they're overlooking is the lack of skill that's being shown overall. Okay, a lot of these guys, like for me, when I look at Andy Ruiz, I feel like, man, he is a disappointment in this sense. Look at how he even got the fight with Joshua. If Big Pharmacy Miller didn't screw up, he wouldn't even been the guy in the ring. Now, I don't know, maybe he would have been next to, I don't know, but he got that shot because Big Pharmacy Miller screwed up. Okay, so he benefited off of his screw up. Here you find yourself fighting for the championship of the world. And see all this, I do this for the Mexican people, and all this, hey, Mexico, all that, but then you end up partying, according to you. Oh, I should have listened to my trainer. I was partying, and my father tell all this, and it's like, you mean to tell me you just fought for the undisputed heavyweight championship? You beat Anthony Joshua, and you all of a sudden, as much as you love to eat, the hunger just died in you, and you just thought, oh, I could beat him without training. I'm going to party. And basically you holler Mexico, Mexico, but this is what you do. You go out and eat a bunch of Snickers and bullshit and party, photo shoots, doing all these interviews. I bought my mama a house and all, yeah, great. But at the end of the day, you got beat in the rematch. And to be honest with you, Andy Ruiz never looked the same. Like, as far as like him, he just doesn't look the same, okay? But because he was a former champion and he is one of the elite heavyweights, understand, Chavez wasn't impressed. I really wasn't either. And I felt like he could have did better against Ortiz if he was as good as a lot of people think he is. I don't feel like he reached his full potential. I just don't think he has the hunger for it. Okay? Andy Ruiz, he won the fight. That's what matters. But how he looked in that fight, okay. So, this is what got my attention, though. Okay, I just wanted to get that part out, because, yeah. This is what got my attention. This same story that I'm telling you guys right now about Chavez. I'm not focused on how the Spanish, broadcast team was telling him he's going off script because he's not supposed to say that stuff on air. So basically, he was supposed to kiss ass and lie and be fake about how he really felt about Andy Ruiz's performance. Okay, I'm not even gonna get into all of that. That's not my focus right now. Okay. My focus is, it's funny because some of the channels that caught wind of that story, they pointed out that the only reason Andy Ruiz won that fight was because he scored 3 knockdowns. That's the only reason. Goes to show you Luis Ortiz basically is a better fighter overall than Andy Ruiz, blah, blah, blah. Right? And, even though he scored the knockdowns, I felt Luis Ortiz definitely outboxed him. He landed more. But it's funny because the one person who really went in and, had to do the whole Chavez story about the race baiting and all that shit and whatever, and how they, okay, whatever. He said that even with the 3 knockdowns, right? He still lost. Just because he knocked him down 3 times doesn't mean you win a fight. But this is the same guy and his little entourage. They all said the same thing. When Deontay Wilder knocked Tyson Fury down in the first fight, they said, how can you possibly win a fight against a guy that knocked you down 2 times? It's impossible. How? There's no way. And my thing was, when I watched the fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, I'm sitting there watching the fight and I'm okay. There was not one clear round that Deontay won aside from the knockdowns, because it becomes a 10-9 or 10-8 round. Those are the only 2 rounds that I can sit here and say that, okay, I can understand why he won that round. Because up until then, he wasn't doing shit in the round. That first fight, look at the punch stat numbers. They were landing like 9 punches landed to 4. 10 punches landed to 5. Like, it was low. Okay, but I didn't see Deontay Wilder winning rounds. Now, how can you possibly say just because Luis Ortiz scored 3 knockdowns doesn't mean he won the fight? Because he was clearly getting outboxed. So you mean to tell me that you thought Deontay Wilder was actually outboxing Tyson Fury in that first fight? So I'm sitting there and today I watched both fights. Not that I had to, I just wanted to compare. And I can go off memory of, I've seen the fight several times. I wanted to just freshen my mind, and I said, okay, here's my assessment. Okay, Luis Ortiz did a better job against Andy Ruiz, landing punches and scoring points, than Deontay Wilder did against Fury in that first fight. So this is where I say I know favoritism plays a huge part in that, because there's no way in my mind that you can tell me that in thinking rationally and cordially and fair, that you really think that Andy Ruiz lost that fight, but you think Deontay won that fight against Fury. And then it's like, too, oh, wait, we got to big up Ortiz because, he fought Wilder. And we can't make Ortiz look like he ain't shit, because then we're taking away, 2 victories from Wilder in terms of fighting legitimate, top heavyweight. Gave him all the praise in the world, just like how Deontay gave Ortiz all the praise in the world when he got in the ring after that fight. He didn't say much about Andy, but I watched that fight, both of those fights today, and I'm like, nah, man. Yeah, Wilder was barely landing anything on Fury in that first fight. It's just that when he throws punches, the crowd ooh and ah, because they're like, what if it lands? They know that what's getting ready to happen type thing. The anticipation is there. Andy Ruiz was losing that fight, in my opinion, on points. Ortiz just wasn't consistent enough to just sustain it throughout the whole round to where he could just, I don't know, stay behind the jab. He could have outboxed. Andy has no footwork. He doesn't know how to, cut the ring off and close the distance and get in. he depends on you to stop moving. That's what Andy does. And his hands are so fast that once he gets close enough, he just starts launching combinations. Okay. Deontay Wilder was throwing single shots, and when he tried to load up, it was just one shot at a time, that just nothing rapid, nothing just, nothing that was really scoring anything. He's just throwing punches here and there, but he was barely landing anything. Now, in terms of Andy Ruiz versus Deontay Wilder, I will say Andy Ruiz gets hit too much. He's fucking easy to hit. He's easy to cut. And basically, everybody's anticipating that if Deontay catches him with that right hand, that it's over. They feel more like Wilder would be able to take his punch more than Ruiz would be able to take Wilder's. Here's the thing about Wilder and Ruiz. Wilder, we know what his bread and butter is. The problem that Wilder would have with Ruiz is if he allows him to get in close. If Wilder stays behind that jab and keep him on the end of his jab, he basically can get, maybe he can get Andy Ruiz out of there. But if Wilder does that lazy shit, like laid back, and then jumps in and tries to like trade with Andy Ruiz and allow it, because Ruiz's hands is way faster than Wilder's, and he can throw combinations. I feel like if Wilder fights discipline, stay behind that jab, and not try to fucking please those fans and go in there trying to go for the knockout when all he got to simply do is box. Not that he's a good boxer, because he's not, but what I'm saying is Andy is horrible at closing the distance and cutting off the ring. Wilder can stay back behind that jab, use the long shots. Wilder like the jab to the body at times too. But basically, if he fights with that typical style and he doesn't really do anything to really bother Andy, what I'm saying is Andy will come in, he'll anticipate the right hand, because that's pretty much Wilder just goes right hand crazy. Every time you hear how hard he's training and he did this amount of rounds and he's doing it, he still gets in the ring and do the same exact shit. So I don't expect anything different. But what I'm saying is his approach to the fight. I think that with Wilder, listen, if he knocks Andy out, that's yet to be seen. Does Andy knock him out? It's yet to be seen. I feel like, truthfully, if it goes 12 rounds, 10 rounds rather, if it goes 10 rounds, you think that the advantage will go to Andy Ruiz. Because if it went 12 on the distance, it more than likely probably means that Wilder's not catching Andy Ruiz clean. And if he is catching him clean and he's just eating the shot, I don't see him just getting hit over and over with that right hand and not getting bothered by it. Now, if he get hit with a shot he don't see coming, that can like, oh, what the fuck just happened? You just got knocked out. Never saw the punch coming. But at the same time, because Wilder doesn't have a really good ring IQ, it's not like it's just a given that he wins. If he does win, I see it by being a knockout. Does he win a decision? Shit can happen. Derek Chisora finally got a decision, but you would think a decision favors Andy Ruiz. You understand what I mean? Because I feel like for Wilder, he has to knock him out, just for the simple fact that if he boxes him, Wilder can't fucking box. If Wilder tried to keep him on the end of his shots, Wilder's not going to try to outbox you. First off, let me say that. What I'm saying is, if he fights patiently, because he always just has patience, but not letting Andy get in, because that's what I'm saying. Keep him on the outside and control that distance, and then when he decides to pour it on, do it behind the jab. But if he starts trying to swing and like trade with Andy, that's where it can get tricky for him, because Wilder doesn't have no fucking footwork either. He has skinny, weak legs, and he doesn't move a lot. And even when he does move, he just goes straight back in a straight line. The problem with Andy is Andy just can't catch up to you. You saw it against Ortiz the same way. He just can't catch up to you. The difference with Chris Arreola, and people feel like, see, why AJ didn't do that? It's because Chris Arreola stood right there in front of him. Okay? But Chris Arreola, what he was doing smart, he was timing Andy Ruiz shots. That's how you try to nullify speeds, with timing. And he was timing him. And he was causing Ruiz to be cautious, because when he tried to, throw them combinations, pop, oh shit, what the fuck? And so he was making him cautious. That's the difference. So really, it's like, I think Wilder would be the favorite to win in that fight, because Andy, like I say, is so easy to fucking hit. And because of the right hand, yeah, I get why people would think he would win. I don't know what will happen. I mean, I can understand both sides. If Andy Ruiz gets his way and throw those combinations, and he's allowed to get in, he can do some damage. But because of Wilder's lack of IQ, I can see Wilder throwing punches, trying to trade when he should be boxing. But we'll see if that fight actually happens. But tell me what y'all think in the comment section. Do y'all think Wilder's performance against Fury was better? Like, do you think his performance against Fury was better than Ruiz's performance against Ortiz? Do you think that because Wilder scored the 2 knockdowns, remember, Andy scored 3, but do you think that both of them in the same situation, that if Wilder didn't score the knockdowns, that Fury wins that fight? And the same thing, if Ruiz did not get those knockdowns. Well, we saw the scorecard, so we know. But do y'all think that, bottom line, who y'all think did better, or was it about the same? Because truthfully, it's not like it was a dominating performance by Ortiz or by Fury, in terms of like they was just landing massive blows, but like they was outpointing and they were winning the fight. Well, who do you think had the better performance? Do you think Ruiz performed better against Ortiz, or do you think Wilder performed better against Fury? I'm about to go get in the gym and get my workout in. Just wanted to get this last video out. Never fall in love with lies. Remember, the truth brings hate out of people, and I will catch y'all in the next video.